In the earlier parts of this investigation, it was shown that the famous Colosseum in Rome was constructed in the 19th century by Roman popes as a forgery made to look like ancient ruins. The real ancient Colosseum, however, is located in Istanbul. On this old Turkish map of Istanbul, dated 944 Anno Hejre, that is, 1537 to 1538 AD, two obelisks at the Hippodrome and the serpent column between them are clearly visible. Moreover, the headpiece of the serpent column is shown intact, unlike today where it is broken. Additionally, on the edges of the Hippodrome, there are two smaller columns depicted, which no longer exist today. In this regard, it is worth recalling that on another old drawing, the Hippodrome was also shown with far more columns and obelisks than are present today. It is likely that in the 16th–17th centuries, there really were more of them. But let us return to the old Turkish map. The Colosseum is depicted on it in its correct location, near the Constantine's obelisk at the end of the Hippodrome. It is shown as ruins, a semicircular row of columns with remnants of overhead structures. Thus, we see that the Colosseum was consistently depicted on old maps of Istanbul, Constantinople. Most often, it appears as ruins, but occasionally as an intact structure. On some maps, it is directly labeled as the Colosseum. There are also depictions where the Istanbul Colosseum is called the Flavian Amphitheatre, which directly links it to the historical Colosseum in Rome. Moreover, it is always shown on maps of Istanbul, Constantinople in the same place, precisely where its remains are located in modern Istanbul. It is truly astonishing how historians manage to persistently ignore the Colosseum in Istanbul and pretend it does not exist. Between 2006 and 2008, a complete facsimile edition of the famous Russian medieval source, the Illustrated Chronicle of Ivan the Terrible, Litsovoy Litopisny Svod, was published. This was a significant event because the Illustrated Chronicle had been kept in closed archives for nearly 300 years and was inaccessible to a wide range of researchers. Now, it is finally available. The Illustrated Chronicle is an extensive multi-volume chronicle encompassing not only Russian history but also biblical, Trojan, Roman, and Byzantine history. It is richly illustrated with numerous beautiful drawings, many of which depict Rome and Constantinople. The Illustrated Chronicle is usually dated to the 16th century, during the time of Ivan the Terrible. However, according to Fomenko and Nosovsky, this is not the case. They argue that the chronicle was created in the 17th century, during the Romanov era. According to the works of the founders of the new chronology theory, the Chronicle, despite being created in the 17th century, is one of the earliest Russian chronicles to have survived to the present day. Among major chronicles, it is probably the earliest. The others, in their current form, were created only in the 18th century. Therefore, the Illustrated Chronicle is of immense interest. Let us take a look at how the Colosseum is depicted in the Illustrated Chronicle. It turns out the following: explicit depictions of the Colosseum are not found in the Chronicle. However, in some drawings, there is an image of a certain round building, covered instead of a roof with something like a canopy. It is quite likely that this is the Colosseum. After all, it is believed that in ancient times the Colosseum was indeed covered with a canopy that protected spectators from the sun and rain. Even if no such canopy ever actually existed over the Colosseum, the very existence of this belief could have been reflected in the Chronicle. It is worth noting that, according to historians and the Brockhaus and Ephron Encyclopedic Dictionary, a canopy was indeed stretched over the Colosseum. It would be very interesting to find out whether an enormous canopy was ever stretched over the Istanbul Colosseum. Or is this just a later hypothesis of historians? There is no answer to this question yet. However, if the canopy did exist, it is likely that there were some supports in the middle of the Colosseum to hold it up. In this regard, we should take note of the row of columns and obelisks standing in the middle of the Colosseum in this drawing. The Hippodrome in Istanbul is described in every guidebook. It is one of the most famous landmarks of the Old City. It is believed that the Hippodrome existed in Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul, long before the city was captured by the Ottomans. The word hippodrome itself means horse racetrack, and thus it is considered that horse races and other equestrian competitions were once held here. However, it is striking that today's Istanbul Hippodrome does not at all resemble a place where any kind of horse racing could have taken place. Today, it is a narrow, rectangular square stretching in one direction, resembling an ordinary boulevard. If horse races were truly held here, horses at both ends of this elongated square would have had to slow down significantly to make the turns. Real hippodromes are not designed this way. They are circular or oval in shape, not a straight road back and forth like the Istanbul Hippodrome. Perhaps the Hippodrome in Constantinople was actually located somewhere else. But then why did its name move? The next thought is simple. Most likely, the true Istanbul Hippodrome is the Colosseum, an enormous circular arena perfectly suited for horse races. What is referred to today as the Istanbul Hippodrome is merely the road leading to the Hippodrome Colosseum, stretching from the Hagia Sophia and the Imperial Palace. The reasons for this confusion are understandable. Here's the situation. Judging by the maps and satellite images, the Istanbul Colosseum was most heavily destroyed on the side facing the Hagia Sophia. According to the reconstruction by the authors of the New Chronology, the Colosseum began to be destroyed by the Ottomans in the 15th–16th centuries. When the walls of the Colosseum facing the Hagia Sophia were taken apart, the remaining walls formed something like a semicircle. Someone mistakenly imagined that this semicircular remnant was once part of a massive ancient hippodrome, stretching for 400 meters almost up to the Hagia Sophia itself. And that supposedly horse races took place along this entire elongated space in medieval Constantinople. It was also assumed that the walls of the hippodrome extended almost to the Hagia Sophia, where they allegedly formed another semicircle, serving as the other end of the hippodrome. Historians still adhere to this view today. As we now understand, this is incorrect. The original walls of the Colosseum Hippodrome formed and still form an oval measuring approximately 140 by 125 meters, not 400 by 120 meters as historians mistakenly believe. There are no traces of a second semicircular wall near the Hagia Sophia. Nevertheless, some artists, following incorrect assumptions about the location of the hippodrome, added a second semicircle at a significant distance from the Colosseum, unnaturally stretching the hippodrome in length. This error, likely made long ago, has also found its way into modern guidebooks. The Istanbul Hippodrome is described as follows. This structure, located west of the Blue Mosque, was built by the Roman Emperor Septimius Severus in 203. Later, Emperor Constantine the Great expanded it. The hippodrome is approximately 400 meters long and 120 meters wide and was estimated to hold 40,000 spectators. The long and thick wall in the center of the racetrack, known as the spina, was adorned with obelisks and columns, some of which still stand today. It must be said that the width of the hippodrome is correctly indicated. The width of the Istanbul Colosseum indeed measures about 120 meters. However, the length of the hippodrome is incorrectly stated. The actual length of the Colosseum Hippodrome is, as we have seen, approximately 140 meters. By increasing it on paper to 400 meters, historians extended the imaginary hippodrome to include the road leading from the Hagia Sophia. Consequently, this road inherited the name Hippodrome, while the actual Hippodrome, the Colosseum, located at the end of the road, was forgotten. The mistaken belief that the Istanbul Colosseum was a 400-meter-long arena likely arose long ago. As we have seen, it is reflected in some old drawings. Moreover, this misconception appears to have been transferred to Italian Rome, giving rise to the idea that ancient Rome had a massive Circus Maximus. Although it has not survived to the present day, historians attempt to reconstruct it. According to their reconstructions, it is identical to the imagined Istanbul Hippodrome, a strongly elongated arena with an open end, and a wall in the middle adorned with obelisks and columns. A simple comparison of images of the imagined circus in Rome and the imagined hippodrome in Istanbul shows that they are essentially the same structure. The similarities are striking. It seems that both the Istanbul Hippodrome and the Roman Circus Maximus originated in the imagination of ancient authors from the 16th–17th centuries, who attempted to recall how the ancient Colosseum in Constantinople looked before the city's conquest by the Ottomans in 1453. As already mentioned, the Colosseum was heavily damaged by the Ottomans. Therefore, its original appearance had to be reconstructed. Over time, the imagined reconstruction of the Colosseum created by Europeans in the 16th–17th centuries took on a life of its own. In Istanbul, it gave rise to the phantom of an ancient hippodrome. In Italian Rome, it gave rise to the phantom of the ancient Circus Maximus. Both were supposedly separate structures from the Colosseum, located near it. The Roman Circus Maximus is described as follows. The great circus was constantly expanded, climbing further and further up the slopes of the hills. By the end of its existence, it held a colossal number of spectators, though this was greatly exaggerated in literary tradition. Similarly, the Istanbul Hippodrome was estimated to hold 40,000 spectators. This number is most likely greatly exaggerated. As we have seen, the Istanbul Colosseum is located at the edge of the current hippodrome, near the Constantine's obelisk, also known as the Walled Obelisk. It is believed to have once been coated with bronze plates adorned with images, giving it the appearance of a true monument. The bronze plaques that previously covered it, depicting peasants and fishermen, were stripped off and melted down by the Fourth Crusaders. Traces of the fastenings for these plaques can still be seen. The historian's opinion that the Constantine's obelisk allegedly depicted only peasants and fishermen, harmless rural scenes, is highly doubtful. More likely, it featured much more historically significant images. It is no coincidence that on a 1572 map, this obelisk is referred to as the historical column, Colonna Storiata. As for who exactly removed the plaques from the Constantine's obelisk and when, according to the reconstruction by the authors of the New Chronology, it was not the Fourth Crusaders in 1204. During the time of the Fourth Crusade, Constantinople had not yet been built. More likely, the plaques were removed by the Ottomans after they captured Constantinople in 1453. Alternatively, the bronze plaques may have been stripped and melted down in the mid-19th century when the Ottoman court came under strong Western European influence. It seems that it was during this period that the Scaligerian history began to be imposed in Istanbul, including through the destruction or alteration of historical monuments that contradicted this version of history. The existence of the Istanbul Colosseum clearly bothered Europeans. They made every effort to erase it from the city's map. To this end, another name for the Colosseum, the Hippodrome, was assigned to the road leading from the Hagia Sophia to the Colosseum. Perhaps European historians undertook this effort after the construction of the mock Colosseum in Italian Rome. They wanted to present the idea that there is only one Colosseum, and it is located in Italy.